This video has been sponsored by COG Games and Elsword. Stay tuned as we take another look at Season 2. Yo, it's Austin. We've tackled a couple of Dragon Ball games here on the channel already, but I figured it was time to go a little bit deeper. I'm sure a couple of you guys have heard of the Legacy of Goku series. But first, a quick tale of corporations. In the late 90s, the Dragon Ball license was kind of all over the place. It hadn't quite reached the popularity it would gain from being shown on Toonami and the original early-ass morning Fox syndication. Hell, Dragon Ball GT Final Bout somehow finagled a release in the States, a year before it even hit Cartoon Network. The back of the box said something about achieving cult hit status around the globe, which we all know is a bunch of BS.
You look strong. This should be a good fight.
This is going to be a problem.
So, right when Dragon Ball Z began really making the waves on television, right when cheaply made toys were filling up Walmarts and Dragon Ball Z VHS tapes, both cut and uncut, were filling up sun coasts across America. Like, damn, anime tapes were all over the place. Anyways, Infogrames started to release games from the Dragon Ball Z franchise, but also Bandai was still releasing games? Then Infogrames rebranded into Atari, making them like fake Atari, I guess. That's a story for another day, but basically, pre-fake Atari decided not only to localize a few Japanese games, such as Budokai and Budokai Tenkaichi, but also recruit American developers to make some as well. Normally I'm all for diversity when it comes to game dev studios, but do you remember what happened last time? It was this one, Dragon Ball Z Sagas. And we don't talk about sagas around here.
It goes where no Dragon Ball Z game has gone before.
So, Infotari made a good amount of games in a short time. There's a bunch to dig through, but our pick for the day is probably the most notorious. A trilogy of Dragon Ball Z games on the Game Boy Advance made by a lone company called Webfoot Technologies. So without wasting any more time, let's go ahead and dive straight into the first one, Dragon Ball Z, The Legacy of Goku. I played the hell out of Legacy of Goku when I was younger. Being a huge fan of beat-em-ups and Japanese RPGs at the time, one look at this game and it was like, whoa! That's like both the things I love, and also Dragon Ball. How nifty. I mean, hell, it even starts with an actual FMV sequence with clips from the Rock the Dragon intro. Looking at this was so cool on my original Game Boy Advance. In terrible lighting. Viewing this blown up as an adult is pretty funny knowing how hyped it made you as a kid. So just like the anime, Legacy of Goku begins with Goku collecting a bunch of porno mags for Master Roshi, of what looks like Bulma and Chi-Chi's faces? Huh, guess I forgot about that. Right after this, Raditz comes and nabs Gohan away, and it's up to Goku and Piccolo to save the day, with an awkward transition to a still frame of Goku holding the Dragon Radar. Then suddenly we're back at Goku's house, where he decides it best to not say anything to Chi-Chi. Okay, sure, I understand. It's a video game. We gotta pad it out just a little bit, but I mean, come on. So you embark steadfast in your quest to rescue your son by punching crabs and snakes, and this is where I was reminded. Legacy of Goku is mean. I like how it uses Angel Goku from like way later in the show. Yeah, no, this game feels unnecessarily hard. All of the enemy AI is like the opposite of Aliens Colonial Marines, and they just zipline straight for you. Goku can take about no hits before he just dies, despite having bested King Piccolo, trampled Tien Shinhan, and even surviving Piccolo Jr. Attacking feels really awkward because Goku's melee range is really small, and your key energy drains a massive amount with the smallest of fireballs. Look, I'm gonna get to the point. Legacy of Goku 1 kind of plays like trash. It took the route of a Zelda clone, but decided to forego all of the accessibility, tight controls, and, well, fun. When attempting to fight the smallest of creatures turns into a maybe death situation, you've got a problem. There is one way to circumvent that, though. Grinding. So run back and forth between screens, killing the same shit until you get enough XP to actually level up, which does make a huge difference in your power level. I mean, I guess that's kind of expected in an RPG type game, but having that straight from the get-go is a little like, So anyways, on the way to Gohan, Goku helps out a pterodactyl, grinds for a little bit, helps out a few lost children, talks to some old man, and then finally goes through a cave to reach Raditz, where Piccolo is patiently waiting. You can actually go talk to Gohan, who's just standing around prior to fighting anything for some reason. So you do the first boss fight and... Oh, Similarly to the random enemies you fight, similarly to the other American-made Dragon Ball Z game, Dragon Ball Z Sagas, Legacy of Goku's boss battles are inexplicably difficult. It takes a lot of cowardice and dipping in and out of combat in order to do damage and hopefully avoid taking it. Goku has the ability to fly, but for some reason it's just a consumable. There are little flight power-ups spread out throughout the map, but man, it's such a pointless mechanic. The numbers go down too quickly. Battles, especially boss battles, feel completely chaotic and not in the, fun way. So you beat Raditz and Gohan is like cry before Worst Dad says, "I love you, Gohan," and immediately phases out of existence. Now, because this is the Legacy of Goku, the next sequence of events goes at a lightning pace. The anime dealt with all of the other characters' training, people being recruited from baseball events, Piccolo becoming Gohan's surrogate father and blowing up the moon. This game, however, puts you directly on Snake Way where you just get to walk, I guess. Remember that filler episode where Goku's kidnapped by Princess Snake and almost killed? Well, that's here too. And this is all of it.
God, this gameplay is like...
That's the entire game. Spamming attacks, running away, and hiding in the item menu to abuse healing items. Which, by the way, are limited, so be careful you don't use them all. Considering we've already tackled pretty much all of the game mechanics, let's go ahead and fast forward to the rest of this. As you would imagine, it does cover all of the main Dragon Ball Z story beats, although it's too abridged to really recommend playing as your method of consuming Dragon Ball Z. Not that anyone has or would ever do that. Hell? Or Home for Infinity Losers? Check. King Kai's Planet? Check. It was around this time that I started getting a weird feeling that this game was like a bootleg one. Jarring transitions, broken dialogue such as, I'm able to teach you the Kame. That's incorrect. Goku, I'm able to teach you. It's like Smeagol, what the fuck? I'm able to teach you the Kamehame. Ha attack. Also, anything that's not Toriyama created is absolutely terrifying. Prior to fighting Vegeta and Nappa, Goku makes a stop in some winter town where he finds this disgusting thing. Then he goes to a town where he stops a robbery, passes a police checkpoint with refugee houses? Sure, whatever. The bootlegginess continues with this whole Nappa's dead body turning into like a puddle of goo, and then Vegeta getting locked in a pattern. I don't really know what else to say about Legacy of Goku besides the fact that I'm surprised it got sequels at all. This game's not good. In fact, I would kind of call it awful. The only redeeming thing here is the soundtrack, which has pretty decent and original tracks. There's just something about grinding in a game that's barely 3 hours long that bugs me. By the time you finally reach Frieza and finagle your way around him till he dies, you've spent about half of that time grinding on enemies and pushing your face up against bosses that it's just not even worth playing. But I beat the game for you guys, so, I appreciate you, even though I feel like this now. Let's move on. So let's take a quick break from Dragon Ball Z to thank our sponsor, Elsword. COG Games has supported the channel in the past, and due to the sporadic nature of YouTube, I'm very thankful to have support from them and viewers like you. So why don't we take a quick look into what Elsword has to offer. Look, times have changed. Anime has changed, video games have changed. So you know what that means? Elsword has changed. It's season 2. It keeps getting updates and it keeps getting bigger and bigger, man. Since the last time we spoke about it, Elsword has received several patches adding a bunch of new methods to get loot. After all, with the game shifting from pay to win to a play to win structure, the new batches of dungeons and daily quests give you plenty of PvE content to do. The recent Are You Ready event has added job changing as well. There's gonna be a lot of options for you to tackle. If this is your first time around these parts, Elsword is a free-to-play 2.5 directional platformer action MMORPG that wants to test your skill with the combat system. After all, it ain't easy being so kawaii desune. For those of you who played Elsword a while ago, check this out. A lot has changed. We've got a skill system that doesn't make you pick and choose individual numbers because they just unlock as you level up. And also just generally a new fresh coat of paint over the UI with new character art, icons, and even opening intros. And if you're into the story content, the Masters of Darkness have returned with Season 2. Now that the third jobs all have 3 different paths for each character, we're finally exploring a more evil side with a newly added third path. PvE ain't your thing? Well, all of the character classes have been completely rebalanced, making for different strategies in the arena mode. Go throw some hands at randoms or you could can try. So hey, if all of this sounds like your bag, check out the link in the description below to start playing Elsword today. So yeah, upon revisiting Legacy of Goku, it's pretty disappointing. I think being a kid and just having a game that says Dragon Ball on it makes you all woo and giddy and excited and overwilling to look all of the flaws, but as an old fart, it's like, nah dog. However, thanks to pretty decent sales, a year and 1 month later, we would get the sequel, The Legacy of Goku II. Now, here's where things get real. After playing the original, I vented some thoughts to some friends who pushed me to try the sequel. That was the good one. Now, I've heard that so many times before, the good old, no, it gets good here thing that is usually met with disappointment. But holy shit, for once in my life, they were right. Legacy of Goku II is a huge improvement in every single aspect. Let's talk about it. Literally the second you turn it on, the quality of the FMV is infinitely higher. The soundtrack actually makes that Game Boy Advance sound chip sound like it's pumping something out, using a lot of Bruce Falconer's score in the process. The color palette and sprite work has been expanded, and honestly, everything just looks better. The quality of life changes don't stop there either. You might have noticed already, but this time we've got multiple characters to play as. A huge failing of the original, Legacy 2 feels much more complete narrative-wise thanks to this. It's also like 5 times longer too? Go figure. This time we start in the distant future with Trunks and Gohan in the middle of their fight against the androids. While there's no actual combat here, I'm just glad that we seem to have a much higher level of presentation. There's actual interactions between the characters, setting up the entirety of the Android and Cell Saga. Shame the music isn't the music from the original VHS and DVD versions, but that's okay. Got that Dream Theater.
A dreadful duo launched an attack. Coming to the defense of the inhabitants for Earth Special Forces.
From here we start to play as Gohan, and the very first thing I noticed is that I was moving diagonally. Thank God. It's funny how much the little things can add up. Combat as a whole is a huge improvement. Since you can double tap the D-pad to run, you can really get up in people's faces and wail on them. And boy, can you wail on them. Now, sure, they can still get up in your face and kick your ass, but it's a lot easier to fight back in this game. Other additions include collectible items, stat boosters, and my personal favorite thing, an overworld. Similar to the airship sections from older Final Fantasies and other RPGs, you can fly around the world map and explore. While sure it's a little limited in where you can go, I much prefer this to the linear level-based structure from the original. Alongside the main story, you also get a few side quests and in-game content such as fucking Cooler showing up out of nowhere. However, it's not all fine and dandy. Despite being better in just about every way, Legacy of Goku II still looks pretty bootleg. A lot of the character portraits look super off. Some of the backgrounds look great, but others are a mess. Capsule Corporation looks like someone took an MS Paint spray can tool and just went to town with it. And if you thought the grinding was bad in the last game, Legacy of Goku II has way more. So in this game, you have these colored character-specific doors with numbers on them. These represent the level that specific character has to be in order to break through. While that's not so bad, sometimes you'll be thrown into a situation where you're forced to play as a certain character that hasn't been playable for a while. Now they're like 20 levels behind the progression of everyone else, but you can't get through without those big punches. Granted, leveling up can go kind of quickly, but the amount of times you have to do this just add up and it's too much. On top of that, halfway through the game, you're forced to collect all of the Dragon Balls for story reasons. So suddenly you're forced to backtrack to all the areas you've already played through to find new zones, and honestly it feels like they padded it out to add another 4 hours to the game. But at the very least, they took that opportunity to take the fan service up a notch and include some neat segments where you can run into old Dragon Ball villains like General Tao. That's pretty cool. Oh, and speaking of padding, let's talk about things that are not canon. Yeah, like, Legacy of Goku did this a few times, but woo! Goku 2 took that to the next level. Y'all remember when Piccolo went into the cornfields and punched a Triceratops in the face a bunch? Or when Cooler popped up in front of Gohan and was like, hey, send your dad to Namek when you beat the game. Or when you go into some dude named Vinny's bachelor pad in order to turn off his yeah, you get the point. The worst offender, however, is this side quest where in order to access Dr. Giro's lab, you have to relocate a Brontosaurus and transport his eggs down the mountain. The problem is that you cannot run, you can't attack, and if one hit connects with you, the egg you're carrying breaks, making you restart. Enemies in this small screen are packed together and will run at you at crazy speeds, meaning it's just trial and error until you can figure out something that works. But you have to do it 3 separate times. Maybe I'm just bad, but this section took me like 30 minutes to figure out all of the enemy paths, which is just ridiculous. Easily the worst part of this game. Despite its flaws though, Legacy of Goku 2 overall is still pretty decent. It's not perfect, but running through the Cell Saga, the best saga, is always a treat. Plus, I can play as Vegeta and Future Trunks, and that's the best. Kind of funny that the Legacy of Goku game barely has Goku in it, but that's okay. Well, we've reached the apex, the finale of the Legacy of Goku trilogy. Although they would end up dropping Legacy of Goku from the game's title because, you know, Cell killed him. However, 1 year and just a couple months later, Webfoot Technologies would once again put out another game, this time called Dragon Ball Z Boo's Fury. Boo's Fury is a curious thing to me. I don't know many people who played this one. When I'd ask around, it seemed like a lot of people lost interest in the Boo saga, or that they didn't know it even came out. But I have to say, Webfoot really pulled out all of the stops here. In a rare case of we are learning from our mistakes. Boo's Fury continues to improve on almost everything Legacy 2 had. The graphic presentation has come a long way since the original. Snake Way doesn't look dumpy. The environments are more varied and even more colorful. Though I will say that the character portraits are still a bit off. Look at Goku's thick-ass neck. Lay off the traps. Combat is practically the same, but now we've got currency and equipment. Enemies can drop items and consumables pretty regularly, and you can spend that money to buy more things. Level ups come with stat points this time around, which I recommend just mainly dumping into strength because, well, I mean, if you can destroy things in 1 or 2 hits, you don't have to worry about anything else. Considering that this is the Boo saga, we've also got fusion. It's okay. That's all fine and dandy, but unfortunately, for everything Boo's Fury further expanded upon, they failed to address certain issues with the previous game. In fact, some of the glaring flaws have opened up further because of this. Grinding has now reached an unfathomable level, with the amount of playable characters now reaching 5, them being Goku, Gohan, Goten, Trunks, and Vegeta. It's all just a bit much. Oh, there's also unlockables. You start out as Gohan going to high school. I'll be real, I actually love this saga. I feel like it gets a lot of unnecessary hate for taking a bit of a break and showing how time had passed. Sure, it wasn't fighting, but instead just Gohan trying to fit in with society before we find out how much of a goober he is.
Hi-ya! Whoa, uh-huh!
Oh, also Videl's the best. But yeah, you take a big break from playing as Gohan midway through the game due to, you know, him disappearing from the plot. But when I got back to controlling him, I was stuck about 30 levels behind one of those gate doors. You'd think it would scale your characters to be closer in level, but I guess not. It makes for a very frustrating experience. On top of that, we once again have a Dragon Ball Collectathon segment that overstays its welcome. Suddenly I'm in a pyramid fighting mummies, and then Broly, who's terrorizing a village? I think the padding here only showed because of how low in substance the Boo saga was. The Great Saiyaman sections, while I do enjoy them, go on for a bit longer than necessary. But we do get one of Gohan's random classmates saying that his name was the Great Soy Man, though, and that's the best thing. That's the best thing you can ask for. The true evolution of a soy boy, the Great Soy Man, and the Great Soy Woman. At the very least, the soundtrack done by Yanis Brown really pushes the Game Boy Advance to its limits. Although I will say some of the songs lifted from the Falconer soundtrack sound like they were discount versions of them. Like, check out the next episode chapter song. Overall, I think the Legacy of Goku trilogy is a really interesting take on the franchise. These American-made games went from absolutely awful to almost there, but not quite. I think if I had played Goku 2 and Boo's Fury as a kid, I would have adored them, but that's not the case. While it may not be a must-play for a Dragon Ball Z fan, especially in 2018, I will say that I'm glad these exist. Also, this isn't Illinois-based Webfoot Technologies' last take on Dragon Ball either, as there's still one more game to cover, Dragon Ball GT Transformation. However, we'll be tackling that another time. A couple years later, Atari would lose the rights to publishing Dragon Ball games in America as Bandai Namco snatched up the exclusive ones. However, Webfoot Technologies is still around. A couple years ago, they actually posted some concept art for a Legacy of Goku 4, but Who knows if that'll ever get made. Maybe one day we'll see the legacy continue, but until then, I've been Austin, and I'll catch you later. Thanks for watching. Make sure to check out the link in the description or the one here on the screen if you're interested in checking out Elsword. Thanks for sticking to the end. Big ups to all of my Patreon supporters for making all of this possible. If you're interested in helping out via Patreon and joining in the volcano of support, give it a look-see. Also, if you dug the video, feel free to subscribe for more stuff soon. Honestly, I want to cover Dragon Ball more, so if you're down for that, let me know. Like me some Dragon Ball. See ya. Bye-bye.